My first experience to Rickie Lee Jones was her appearance on Saturday Night Live back in 1979. Her debut album was newly released and she performed Chucky's in Love. But it was her performance of Coolsville that really just polarized me and made me want to go out and buy her self-titled debut album. I was enthralled with it from the very first listen. Like all albums that make an impression on me, I live with them for a while and then put it away till that time when I want to live through it again. I never cease to be amazed at how fresh this album continually sounds, no matter how many years have passed since I first heard it. There is a consistency to this album that few others have, and not just its tone and musicianship, production, and songwriting, although all these things do maintain a high level of quality. To me, what really sets this album apart from other great albums is the world that it creates for the listener, and how it maintains that world from song to song. Within this musical world, Rickie creates a persona for herself as a young, street-smart girl. She probably likes to hang out with the boys more than the girls, and she's a little bit on the wild side, but still vulnerable. Through that persona, she jumps from first-person narrator and an active character in the songs to a third-person observer of urban life. And even as the album's songs walk us through some of the harsher realities of urban life, Rickie remains a hopeful romantic, as the songs maintain a very fragile viewpoint, detailing that time of life during youth that is between the beginning of what some would call the loss of innocence and losing that innocence for all time to adulthood. I think this album just hit me at the right time in my life. I was younger than she was at the time this album came out, but I was already starting to experience that transition from innocent child to young adult. I was already starting to worry my parents about where I was going off to at night and who I was hanging out with. Chucky's in Love, the album's opening track, was a hit single and her only top 10 hit single as a solo artist. The song's pop jazz vibe would echo Steely Dan, but with a more acoustic tone. This song also sets the tone for the world that the rest of the songs on this album will inhabit. Rickie sets herself up as the song's main character, who in the first verse is trying to figure out why her friend, whom she refers to as Chucky, which nowadays comes off as very hip-hop, has been acting so strangely. Why doesn't he hang out with her and the gang like he used to? Why is he dressing so differently? Why is he acting so differently? There can only be one answer, of course. He's in love. Then, in the midsection of the song, she finds herself in disbelief, wondering who is the girl, and is lamenting that this is going to screw up all the fun of their friendship, until she realizes, of course, that the girl is her. The song comes off as both urban, street-smart, humorous, and very sweet. Now, Rickie herself was in her early 20s when the album came out, and was even younger when she was writing the songs that would eventually end up on the album. And during early adulthood, the memory of childhood occupies a very contradictory place in the human psyche. It's distant, but still quite vivid. And remembering it can bring about a sense of melancholy and a longing for a return to that innocence. Over the years, I have found few songs that describe what I refer to as the slowness of childhood and the longing for that time of innocence in the way that the song On Saturday Afternoons in 1963 does. This song contains none of the urban jazz stylings that inhabits the majority of this album. In fact, it comes off as very neoclassical, featuring only piano, strings, and oboe for instrumentation. While the song is less than 2.5 minutes, it musically contradicts itself by creating a mood and a feeling that has all the time in the world, which is what childhood is like. There is a slowness to childhood that allows you to just stare at a ladybug crawling across a leaf with no urgent feeling that you have to move on. There is this feeling that you have all the time in the world, even though you don't. And the song's lyrics and peaceful pace perfectly capture that feeling. The first verse begins, "The most as you'll ever go is back where you used to know." I've always interpreted that line to mean that the greatest experience in life comes from the time when everything was new to you, in other words, childhood. The lyrics continue, "If grown-ups could laugh this slow, whereas you watch the hours snow, and years may go by." Once again, she is talking about the ability to just watch the snow fall as grown-ups rush about their daily lives too busy to take in the slowness of time. And then the lyrics continue, "So hold on to your special friend. Here you'll need something to keep her in. Now you stay inside that foolish grin, though any day your secrets end, and then again years may go by." The special friend that this line refers to could be the imaginary friends that kids make up to play with. but it could also be telling you to hold on to that part of yourself that is a child, that part of you that can still look up into the stars or at a crack in the pavement and stare at it with wonder. Either way, on Saturday afternoons in 1963, track 2 of this album remains one of the most beautiful 2.5 minutes that I've ever experienced. Track 3, Night Train, infuses a slight country western sensibility into its jazz pop stylings and has the songwriter taking the role of narrator-observer. A young mother is on the run. A social worker wants to take away her child, and she's escaping on the night train to, well, where is never stated. In fact, we never know if the mother's child is a boy or a girl. It's all kept deliberately vague so that we can fill in our own blanks and better identify with our main character's plight. The song's light and breezy instrumentation belies the more desperate nature of our main character's plight, and its country western styling adds that idea that this song is taking the outlaw on the run motif and giving us a very different spin on it. Instead of a bank robber taking from mothers, we have a young mother who is trying to keep her baby from being taken away from her. We are never told why the social worker is trying to take the baby away, or if this action is justified. And like a lot of good outlaw songs, we're also never given the ending, because it's up to us to decide the ending and if our main character is a hero or an outlaw. Track 4, Youngblood, takes us headlong into the magic of youth venturing out into the adult world. Rickie takes on the persona of first-person narrator as an active character in the song. The opening lyrics state, "Take a walk around midnight in the city. Youngblood is hiding there somewhere. If you're looking for something to do, there's always something happening there." And my first thought is, who is Youngblood? The song continues with the lyrics, "Like Ian Bragger, borrow a coupe today. Here comes Pepe, and she's got a friend in a Chevrolet. But she ain't running, she's walking a little slow, and she ain't crying, she's just singing a little low." Now, so many things are happening in this short little space of lyrics. First, I should mention that the character Bragger will reappear again in the song Coolsville, thus creating a sense of continuity that these songs and its characters are tied together into a larger narrative. I also have always wondered about that line about borrowing a coupe. It's always felt to me like a rather subtle, humorous way to say that they stole the car, even if just for a little while anyways. Either way, there was a real sense of bad boy, or should I say bad girl, youthful fun to this song, which was a strong reoccurring theme in pop and rock songs during the late 70s and 80s. But in the very next line, there is a sense of sadness as Rickie observes that her friend Pepe is clearly upset about something and is trying to hide it. She's not crying, she's just singing a little low. Does this have something to do with her friend in the Chevrolet? Is that friend a lover? The song doesn't take the time to tell us, and it doesn't really need to, because the chorus that follows sums up how Rickie feels about both her friend and herself and their relationship with each other and the city they live in. They say, "This city will make you dirty, but you look all right, and you feel real pretty when he's holding you tight. City will make you mean, but that's the makeup on your face. Love will wash you clean in the night's disgrace." This is an amazing chorus both melodically and lyrically. Our main character is aware of the danger that the wild lifestyle she is engaging in could swallow her up and force her to lose herself, to lose her vulnerability. But then she expresses hope that love will make her whole again. Even in the song's midsection, while she describes how much fun she and her friends are having, she pauses for a moment of melancholy to say, "You'll never know when you're making a memory. They will wish they were here together again someday." Once again, I think it's amazing that she is expressing so many different and complex feelings in a song that is basically about some kids having some fun at night. The song closes by restating its opening. "Take a walk around midnight in the city. Youngblood will find you there somewhere." And I still wonder, is Youngblood a nickname for someone she knows? Or is it just an attitude, a mood, or a feeling that one encounters in the wild nightlife of youth? In track 5, Easy Money, Rickie switches back to the role of third-person narrator and watches several unscrupulous individuals do their best to con others out of some easy money, only to fail miserably because their intended victim is wise to their schemes and turns the tables. The first thing I love about this song is the amount of lyrical double entendre this song has. I love lines like, "A couple of Jills with their eyes on a couple of bills." Bills as in dollar bills, and bills as in a couple of guys who might as well be named Bill, for all the two Jills mentioned in the song care. The song also does a great job of describing the emotions of its characters. There's a great line of lyric, "They flipped a dime. One said, 'I'll take heads this time.' One stepped up, one stepped back. One loosened her shoulder strap. She couldn't speak. Her knees got weak. She could almost taste that easy money." You can feel the nervousness of this character as she begins her con, but throughout, the rather ruthless nature of the song's different characters is contrasted by the light and gentle 1940s-style jazz stylings of the music that accompanies our story. Now, the use of double entendre not only continues, but also steps up its game with track 6, The Last Chance Texaco. Literally, every line in this song is a double entendre. In fact, you could find enjoyment just reading the lyrics and marveling at how the song employs this technique to describe the desperation of its characters. Like Night Train, the plight of the song's character situations are contrasted by the light, breezy, western-tinged music that accompanies it. And I have to wonder just how much of this song's lyrical brilliance is possibly lost on the younger generations who grew up too late to remember commercial jingles like, "You can trust your car to the man who wears the star." Because the song uses the old-style imagery conveyed in those old-school commercials to brilliantly describe individuals who are so desperate for love that they are literally looking for it in all the wrong places. Now, back in the days of vinyl, side 1 would have ended here. Side 2 would begin with track 7, Danny's All-Star Joint. This is the funnest song on the album. Using a standard 1-4-5 blues progression and then jazzing it out, Rickie goes back to the role of first-person narrator, describing one of her favorite hangouts. She's also an active character in the song and even calls herself out as the girl who likes to kiss the boys behind the magazines. I sometimes compare this song to Penny Lane by the Beatles, because both songs take an average place and through verse and music turn it into something exciting and magical. As the song finishes fading out, we go from the sheer unbridled sense of fun of Danny's All-Star Joint to what is this album's darkest moment, track 8, Coolsville. The song opens with the lyrics, "Ian Bragger and Junior Lee. Well, that's the way we always thought it would be. In the Winston lips of September, how we met, decked out like aces, we'd beat anybody's bet, 'cause we was Coolsville." As I said earlier, the character Bragger was mentioned as a character in the song Youngblood, and in this opening lyric, Rickie, once again taking the role of first-person narrator, reintroduces us to her gang of friends and comments on how their youth made them feel indestructible. But then something horrible happens. What is not exactly clear, and is really left to the listener's interpretation. And in that second verse, it goes, "Well, you stick it here, you stick it over there, but it never fits. And now the hungry night wants more and more, and you're chipping in your little kiss. Well, I jumped all his jokers, but he trumped all my tricks. But I swear to God, I thought this one was smart enough to stick it into Coolsville." And now, unlike Night Train and The Last Chance Texaco, there is no contrasting of gentle music to the desperate nature of the song's characters. Instead, the music to Coolsville is stark, unrelenting, and unforgiving. This is jazz at its darkest. As narrator, Rickie is taking this song very personally in her vocal performance, and the tragedy, although only vaguely described, is still hitting too close to home for her. And this is why I feel the middle verse is so deliberately cryptic. It's up to you, the listener, to bring your own interpretation to the story. The lyrics end with, "So now it's J and B and me. That sounds close, but it ain't the same. But that's okay. Hot City don't hurt that much when everything feels the same." Clearly, something tragic or awful has happened. J could stand for Junior Lee, and B could stand for Bragger. But she says that it only sounds close and is not the same. I wonder, did one of these two friends die? Did both of them? In the chorus to Youngblood, Rickie describes a gnawing concern that the wild life she is living, while fun at the present, could eventually swallow her up. Is that what finally happened to one, if not both of her two friends in this song? By the way, I should pause here and state that I know nothing about Mrs. Jones's personal real life, And even though she makes herself a character in these songs, I realize that every single one of these songs and its characters could be only loosely based on real persons and events in her real life, if not complete fictions. So when I comment on them, I do the same as I would if I commented on characters and incidents in a movie or a novel. And like any good movie or novel, the pain and tragedy in Coolsville feels real. And even to this day now, I can feel a chill go up my spine when I listen to it. Track 9, Weasel and the White Boys Cool, is the one track that I find difficult to figure out. This doesn't make it any less enjoyable than the rest of the songs on the album. It's a very enjoyable song. And it sits squarely alongside Chucky's in Love and Youngblood. While the other songs on this album borrow and echo from past musical genres, these three songs sound, or perhaps I should say sounded at the time they came out, as modern pop jazz. Now this song centers around a guy named Sal, nicknamed the Weasel. I have been told that the Sal she is referring to in the song is Sal Bernardi, a real-life friend who co-wrote the song Traces of the Western Slope from her follow-up album Pirates. Once again acting in the first person, Rickie describes Sal's life in New Jersey, saying that he was pretty sleazy when she met him. And she does this very well with a street-level style of poetry that encompasses the majority of the songs on this album. And then suddenly she launches into a chorus where she tells Sal to say goodbye to his buddies and to his friends and to say goodbye to the Vario. And I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing. In the third verse she states, "Kid sinister with the bus stop blues, a quarter could take you home. A dime could make a dream come true, but a weasel ain't got a dime for the phone. Does a weasel got a dime for the phone?" Then she repeats the chorus where she tells him to say goodbye to his buddies and his friends. I feel like this third and last verse is supposed to give me some kind of clue as to why he has to say goodbye. But I wish I understood why. Is he being deported, taken to jail? Is he moving up in life? It's never really made clear. I know that there are vague lyrical moments in all of the songs on this album, but on the whole, I know, or at least feel like I know, what the songs are about. And I know that those few vague moments are deliberate, and that the author wants me to translate my own experiences into these parts. But in this one case, I find myself puzzled. But like I said, this doesn't make this song any less enjoyable. Now, of course, I have no problem understanding track 10, entitled Company. In this song of a lost relationship, we have Rickie as the torch singer. And boy, does she nail it. This song is so timeless sounding that it feels like it could have been a hit today as easily as it could have been a hit 60 years ago. I think Whitney Houston should have covered this song in the 80s, and I think that someone like Adele or Christina Aguilera should try covering this one now. I'm surprised that this song never became a radio hit, but then I am surprised that more songs from this album didn't make it all over radio. In some ways, I feel like track 11, which is the last track on the album, entitled After Hours, and then subtitled 12 Bars Past Goodnight. I feel like that song echoes back to On Saturday Afternoons in 1963. It is the only other song on the album that is completely orchestral. But instead of sounding neoclassical, After Hours feels like a musical number for a Broadway show tune that doesn't exist, with maybe a hint of Frank Sinatra thrown in for good measure. It's also the perfect track to close the album on. The album has taken us on a journey through the author's world. We have hung out with her and with her gang of friends through good and bad. And at the end of it, we are left with Rickie singing to a street lamp. She sings that all the gang has gone on home and that she's left standing on the corner all alone. So she propositions the lamp to paint the town gray, to join her on one more adventure, for the chance to add one more story. It's as if she is saying that she knows that, just like childhood, this later time in your life is also magical, and it won't last forever, so enjoy it while you can. It's as if she's had that perfect night, and she doesn't want it to end. And that's how I feel as this album comes to a close. I don't want this musical experience to end either. I want to keep exploring this world with Rickie as my guide, but all good things must come to an end. But with this last track, Rickie lets herself and us savor it for just a few minutes longer before we have to say goodnight. I remember when her follow-up album Pirates came out. I was of course anxious to hear it. I was hoping that I would get the chance to return to the world of that first album. But 2 years had passed. The artist had gone through changes, and so had her music. Pirates kind of took us back to that world of the first album, but it was a darker journey, less romanticized, and with fewer lighter moments. But it was still an amazing album. And then she would continue to change as a person and start exploring other musical worlds. I would never again get a chance to continue the journey to the world of that debut album. But like looking at a memory scrapbook, I can always revisit it. For Music Worth Buying, this is TJR. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel. Thanks.